Hello and welcome to another episode of Mysteries with History, where I'll take you on the wild ride into the unknown, the strange, and the mysterious. Like you, I have questions, and like you, I want answers. Want to say hi to everyone in the live chat today. Amador, how you doing? Arlene, Benji, it is so good to see all of you guys. Deborah, how is everyone? Today's going to be an incredibly interesting topic because today we will be talking about the 37th parallel. It is claimed, and we're not too sure yet, but is there a possible UFO highway? Where is there a constant line of UFO sightings? I mean, is there such thing as a UFO highway? Some researchers say yes. And when I came across this story or this kind of account, it was by accident. And so we're here to find out, or to at least guess, based off the data that we have, to see if that really is true. But before we really dive deep, let me bring in my co host, Jimmy Church from Fade to Black. Hey Jimmy, how you doing this afternoon?
How you doing?
Are you Batman? Like
It's
alien Batman?
you know what this is. You know what
Black
this
and
is.
yellow.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I need it for the eyes. I need it for the How are you? Happy holidays, Christina. What is cracking? How you doing?
It is officially the holidays. I just finished my last final, like not too long ago. I'm a little bit trashed from studying, but you know what? I'm so excited for this show to talk to my really good friend, which is you, and we're covering something that's kind of bizarre, something that's not really spoken about a lot, but by some take it as the gospel and others simply do not believe the 37th parallel at all. Well, actually, this is a real thing. It is part of the latitude, longitude. But if it being a UFO highway, that's where people begin to become skeptical.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. This is one of my favorite subjects. And
That's what you say every time.
but okay, and which leads me actually into my first comment. First off, I've had a very busy day today. I just got off of a little holiday thing with Whitley Strieber for his holiday video that he's putting together, and so I got that done and talking about the community and things that are going on. And then I did an unboxing video. Have you ever done an unboxing video?
No, but tell me about yours.
Well, you haven't done one. You've seen them done, right? And you've always wanted to do one, right? Yes. Well, I did one today, and it was a special moment for me. I unboxed this, and it's really heavy, but I'm going to pick it up. This,
Ooh. Oh, a crystal skull.
yeah, and Blue Appetite, and it's just her name is Ocean Queen, and I got this from Carolyn Ford. Enough of that, but I got to do an unboxing video. It was so much fun, and she's sitting here in front of me, so I just wanted to introduce Ocean Queen to you. She's beautiful. So anyway, and going through and prepping for this show, I was thinking earlier about the 37th parallel, and everybody. I spoke to Christine before the show, and I said I've got some special things, and I didn't tell her to talk about when it comes to the 37th parallel. But then I took my thoughts a bit deeper, which are always scary, and I wanted to let everybody know that Christina chooses the topics each week. That there is not. She says this is what we're going to do. Church, you don't have a choice, and I don't even get a vote, or anything. But they're always subjects that I'm deeply interested in, and I find that part kind of strange how you are able to, in your own road down to discovery, that you hit me each week with these subjects. I'm like, exactly right. Well, which takes me to today, the 37th parallel. And when you, I didn't tell Christina any of this, everybody. So just listen to what I have to say here. Christina sends me a copy of a book, and she says, "We're gonna, this is some of the stuff, and we're gonna look into this. Here's the book, and what now." And that's Christina doing her homework. What she doesn't know, and what I've saved it until now, is that the author of this book, Ben Mesrich, New York Times bestselling author, incredible author, that hasn't been a part of our community. And when the book came out, Chuck Zukowski and I and Ben all talked, and Ben sent me a copy of the book. I've got it autographed. And then I had Ben Mesrich on Fade to Black, which was, for me, very exciting to have an author that is not part of our community. Somebody who writes about the real world, I should say, and to have him a part of our community and his interest in this, it was a great show. So we're going to do this today. After the show, you can go and search Fade to Black Ben Mesrich, and then go back and listen to the show that I did with him when the book was released, which was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I'm guessing here, but I did a huge deep dive into 37th parallel probably about 10 years ago. And then I've had Chuck Zukowski on the show multiple times. And, and his TV series came out. And then this book came out by Ben Mesrich. So I've been covering this for a very, very long time. And I thought it was so fun and interesting that you sent me the book and that you wanted to talk about this tonight. That's when I say I'm into these subjects, I'm really into these subjects, Christina, and you are able to just hit it every single week. These things that I'm interested. Your interest is something that I can help with, and this is a classic example of that. So there you go. I'm ready to get started.
Well, you did mention Ben and Chuck, and I think we might as well start off with these main people to the story. The book, The 37th Parallel, came out in 2015. So this is kind of like right before all of the heavy stuff was coming out, in 2017 when we were starting to get more tangible disclosure. So he was definitely writing at a time and even documenting at a time where it was still incredibly laughed at. I did watch a few of his interviews, and he did one interview with a news outlet, and I can't remember which one, but he had stated when he was being asked these questions about UFOs, you could tell in the host's demeanor, because there were two of them, they were kind of laughing at him while asking these questions. And one of the women was like, "Oh, so did anyone like not take you seriously?" And Ben laughed at it and brushed it off and stated, "The only person that didn't want me to write this book was my own father." And that was very comical. And I think he handled that very well. But in this time, 2015, 2016, even the beginning of 2017, the news would cover it here and there, but more as a joke or I guess more as filler than like actual news. And so he, even though Ben isn't necessarily a part of the community hardcore, in a sense, he has brought it into the limelight towards his community, which like you had stated, he's written multiple books and they're more related to the real world. One of them was written called like The Accidental Billionaire, and he writes about Bitcoin. He writes about things that are tangible for the everyday man and woman. But this book, when it came out, it kind of stirred things up, and I'm not too sure how it did. I didn't know how well it sold, but I read the book. I got to get an understanding of who Chuck is. Chuck, what's his last name?
Zukowski.
Zukowski. That's such an awesome name. It reminds me of like jumping mice, like doing like circus tricks. But I just because okay, have you ever seen the movie Coraline?
I have. I was thinking of mice. I was thinking of the new Suicide Squad.
Okay, no. But anyways, Zukowski sounds like another character from the movie Coraline. I forgot what his name was, but anyways, the point is, I had not known who Chuck was until after doing the research and after even seeing his TV series. I kind of skimmed through it and I was like, well, this is incredibly interesting. Because when I was doing the research of the 37th parallel, I didn't find it that easy. I did not from first by doing kind of like a brush research. When I do my research for this show, for these types of shows, for those that don't know, I like to start off basic and then dig deeper down because I'm going in blind. I don't know what the topics are about until after I do a little bit of research. So I found this topic in particular difficult to really push and being like, yes, UFO sightings are mainly in the 37th parallel, because that, from my own research, that wasn't necessarily the case. It kind of fluctuated between like the 33 to like the 38, 39 parallel. And in that section, yes, you're getting a lot more. But to state that the 37th parallel is the UFO highway, it's a little bit of a stretch for me. And here is the map of the 37th parallel for those that are watching this on YouTube or on Twitch. As you can see, it just goes practically a little bit below the middle of the United States. And this is something that goes across the world. And when I was really trying to make sure to see which cities in particular hit that line. And what I found was quite interesting, and hopefully we'll get to cover some of those stories today.
Okay. Let me say this. Although I agree with you that when you look at the maps and you start poking pins in these encounters and take a look at things and the frequency of the 37th parallel and how it comes into play. Okay. Yeah. And are some of them a little north, a little south? Right. Yes. Okay. I understand that. And you can look at the 38th and you can look at the 40th. You can look at the 36th and the 35th and find a preponderance of sightings and things that happen along these particular parallels. Except two things. First off, you have to think about the 37th parallel and the rest of the earth. That's the first thing. It's not just a United States thing. And I'm going to state a fact, an FACT fact right now that everybody can go and check out. And one of the best resources that you can have at your disposal is Google Earth Pro, not Google Maps. I'm not talking about that. Google Earth Pro. Go and get it. Go and download it. Because unlike Google Maps, Google Earth, you can turn on grid lines. Yeah, that's right. Longitude, latitude. And as you are spinning that globe, you can immediately look and see your absolute grid point. Okay. And wherever you go on Google Earth, and especially when you mark something, you get the exact longitude and latitude. And you can then zoom out and start to take a look at the big picture of things globally. Are we clear? All right.
Absolutely.
Now, this is the big setup. This is a fact. Area 51 is exactly, not a little bit north, not a little bit south, exactly on the 37th parallel. That's number one. And you spin that globe around and you follow that 37th parallel line. You go right over and straight through Göbekli Tepe. Now, is that a coincidence? Of course not. That is not a mistake. It's not a mistake on the CIA and Air Force's part to have Area 51 exactly, not a little bit, not like Christina's saying, right? There's a little north, there's a little south. It's not quite. No, Area 51 is on the 37th parallel. It goes straight through the middle of the base. Go and check it out. And then after you're done doing that on Google Earth, it's fascinating to see. Spin that map around. Follow this 37th parallel. Punch in search. Göbekli Tepe. And watch what happens. Straight through Göbekli Tepe. Now, when we talk about the United States and the UFO highway in the 37th parallel, that's fascinating. We're going to go through these cases, and I know that Christina's got a bunch of stuff to present here. But when you go and you look at the facts of the case, when I push this, we're talking about 2 points on opposite ends of the globe, 2 of the most significant locations on planet Earth, Area 51 and Göbekli Tepe, both exactly on the 37th parallel. That right there should force everybody into taking a second look at this and understanding why this is happening. I don't know the significance of the 37th parallel and why this is happening, but somebody at the CIA did. The CIA built that base in the desert, right? Okay. And you go back to ancient man, 12,000 years ago, out in the open, there's nothing there. And they just happened to, by chance, build the most significant site of humanity exactly on the 37th parallel. Somebody help me here. So when you pick this show to do the 37th parallel and its significance, this is an important show. And I think that everybody should go and take a look at this. The same thing happened to Ben Mesrich. The very same thing. He started looking into this as a researcher, as a nonfiction author, a New York Times best-selling author, very respected, not only in journalism, but around the world. And he's starting to look at these cases and the significance of the 37th parallel. And he said, I need to put this into a book. And that is the 37th parallel. Christina, great call today. And that's another gift that I just gave to the audience. Just go and look. Area 51, opposite side of the earth, Göbekli Tepe. It's like the beginning and the end right there on the 37th parallel.
And there's a few others. In that book in particular, Ben states that even the alleged Dulce base is also on the 37th parallel as well.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Now, when I was going through the information, trying to get my hands on absolutely everything, and even looking outside of the book, obviously, as all researchers should do, you shouldn't focus on one source, but you need to go to multiple sources. What came to mind, the first thing that kind of popped up and okay, what's special about the 37th parallel? Why is it even being talked about? So I went ahead and I was thinking, could it maybe be on a ley line? Could that be a possibility? Yep. So, and we've briefly talked about ley lines, and even when trying to read books and watch things and try to understand what ley lines are, I still don't find it incredibly easy to understand. It's not something that's really proved by science. It's more of what people would claim as you can just sense this kind of energy line. So it's very alleged, right? These are just anecdotal ideas of what ley lines are. So I went to Google and I said, okay, Google, tell me.
Right.
Show me a ley line map. What does it look like? And they all looked different. For me, it was very difficult to see, does the 37th parallel lay on a ley line? Are they the same thing? And based off the maps that I was able to acquire, I did not see that to be the case. But again, they were all completely different. None of the maps that I saw looked the exact same. So I wanted to ask you that question from your research for doing this for, you said from 10 years ago. Do you think that the 37th parallel lays on a ley line? And for those that don't know what ley lines are, can you briefly describe what they are?
Well, okay. And then I'm going to give another suggestion here, but I want to stay in the 37th parallel. Ley lines are energetic lines that lie in ley lines, right? That lie in a certain direction, and historically over time, different constructions, whether it be a town, a village, a temple, a site, an object, a location, that churches, right? Political buildings, governments that are constructed on these lines, and you can see them, especially today when you pull back and you're able to, with technology today, see this, and these grid patterns start to show up. That there must have been in some of these cultures that build on these ley lines are 50, 100, 1,000 years apart. They don't know each other, right? And they have no connection. So what are they doing? Sometimes over hundreds, if not thousands of miles or more, where you can find the shapes of the grid and the lines there, where you have to start to accept that somebody knew something and there was a reason for that. I don't know what it is. Yesterday I had Jorge Luis Delgado on the show from Peru, and he was amazing. And one of the things that he said last night during the show, you couldn't see it because I was watching his video from Peru. But he said this thing. He goes, so the ancients, the shamans, they're going around. They have a couple of heavy sticks, and they're walking around. Where should we build? And he goes, they're holding it out in front of them. And then Jorge goes, they start shaking, and they're like, here, right? Well, maybe it's something as simple as that you can sense, you can feel in your body the resonance that is going on when you're over these points. And whether you're an architect, an engineer, or just a leader of a town, or the head of a family, and you want to build a house, or whatever it may be, why do you choose a site for things? Well, maybe, something is reaching out, boom, and you do it. Now, before we get all crazy town, where this is not reality, let me lay this out to you. Another ley line. Lay this out. You can draw a line, and I've done it. I've taken a giant globe and did what I'm about to do. You can draw a line from Easter Island through Machu Picchu, through Stonehenge, through the Great Pyramid of Giza. Straight line. It goes this way. Straight line. Straight line. And it's like, wait a minute here. And it's not off like a little bit. It's not like, it's whoa. So when we talk about a ley line going through, England or Europe or North America or South America, short to 50 miles. And they, yeah, exactly. But I don't think it's a coincidence that you can go from Easter Island to the Great Pyramid of Giza and then start and you look. I took it a step further, Christina. I gave everything a little bit of latitude, and I went 5 miles. That's it. Now look, so 5 miles. When you have the Earth, right? You're looking at the Earth. 5 miles on a line is just the width of a pinprick. Right? Yeah. Okay. So I just went 5 miles on either side and went up, and I found like 50, and it's just like right in a perfect row. Now, what's going on? Somebody feels something and feels the need and the necessity to do it right here. at this point. And I find it fascinating. So, yes, absolutely. Now, does the 37th parallel fall into this? I don't think when you have an end point like at Gobekli Tepe, and I have, and the starting point being, all the way out west at Area 51. That's not coincidence. And that is not coincidence. And we're talking about all the way around the world and 12,000 years between the construction of these two sites, and slapped it right there in the 37th parallel. I
It's
have, oh, go ahead.
it's a weird thing. And with the 37th parallel, it's not just UFO sightings, and something that I found more difficult to follow on the 37th parallel, which maybe we'll cover a little bit later. But also, there are high accounts of cattle mutilations, ghost sightings, and even Bigfoot sightings. Now, when it comes to UFO sightings, there are a few that I covered, but first, I wanted to look at the most famous stories, right? And see, do they really land on the 37th parallel? So the first one I looked at, of course, was Roswell. And I'm like, okay, is Roswell on the 37th parallel?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was no, on the
Right.
33 parallel. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, let's look at Phoenix, the Phoenix Lights, 33 parallel as well. Then
Right.
I said, okay, what about Sedona? People claim it to be a vortex. Maybe there's a ley line there. Also the 33 parallel. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that's interesting. Then I said, okay, now let's look at Travis Walton. Let's see what happened in Snowflake, Arizona. And
Mhm.
that one's pretty close. That's at the 34 parallel. But later on, doing a little bit more research, and I did not go over every single case due to lack of time, but the ones that did hit the exact 37th parallel was, like you said, Area 51. Then you have the alleged Dulce base, and the first story that I want to hit on that also happened on this exact place is the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter, August 21st, 1955. This story was covered by Project Blue Book, and it's an interesting one, and it happened directly on the 37th parallel. I will start off with the summary of the story, and then we can dig into it. You ready, Jimmy?
Yeah, go.
All right. So, on August 21st, 1957, claims to be a hot Sunday evening, and you have the entire Sutton family, which is about a family of 11. It's an extended family. And one of the main characters, being Billy Ray, said he saw something incredibly bizarre. He states to the rest of his family that while he was fetching water from the backyard, he saw a silvery object. And it says, quote, real bright with an exhaust of all the colors of the rainbow. I have never heard that in another story before, where someone is seeing a craft and it has exhaust, and that the exhaust is all of the colors of the rainbow. Then he later states that when it passed by the house, it was completely silent. And it states that it even stopped the air and then dropped straight into the ground. But when Billy Ray told the story to his family, they kind of just laughed it off and said, oh, geez, no, you're crazy. Why are you telling this story? But an hour later of just telling the story to his family, the dog starts to bark just so insanely. And for a lot of stories that we hear with people having dogs, cats, or cattle, horses, they act incredibly strange right before a UFO sighting or even during. And in this case, in the story, that also follows the same pattern. The dog just goes insane with his barking. Luckily, well, yeah, luckily after this all happened, they kind of just like brushed it off. They're like, oh, maybe the dog is sensing something kind of weird. But when Billy Ray opens the door, he makes out kind of a strange glow in the midst of which they spied a small humanoid creature.
Mm-hmm.
And he states, and the rest of the family later kind of encounter these beings. And he states that they're about 3.5 feet tall with an oversized head, almost perfectly round, arms extended almost to the ground. and eyes that glow kind of a shade of yellow. Now let me pull up that picture right now because he even did a drawing of it, and he sent it to a few news places that were taking this information. Here is how it looks. What the heck is this? Let me just take that off.
That was mine.
That was mine.
No, that was mine.
Let me zoom in.
You
Okay.
shared my screen. See, I'm on top of this,
Oh.
Christina. I'm on top of it. I'm doing.
Okay.
I
Well
am.
then, I will share yours. But okay.
Oh, it's got all the private stuff. Oh, yeah, that
Let
didn't
me
show it.
I'll just share mine. It's not a problem. Anyways, the point being, for those that are watching this on YouTube, you can see what he described of it looking like. And later on, as for those that have followed the stories of Project Blue Book, or you have even watched the newest TV series that came out a few years ago, totally recommend the show. They also covered this exact story. And as you can tell from Billy Ray's drawing, this is his drawing, you have a perfectly round head, you have these kind of bulging eyes that he states that were glowing, and that their arms reach almost to the ground, being about 3.5 feet tall. Now, with this story, this is kind of where, and I'm not saying exactly, but this is kind of where the saying goes of little green men. It kind of comes from this story that really just kind of took a life of its own, which
That's
we'll
right.
cover a little bit later. So, obviously, the whole family is mortified. They have no idea what these creatures are. They're walking towards them. So, one of the men grab a 20 gauge shotgun, and another one grabs a 22 rifle and fire at this little man. But from their accounts, which they later described to journalists and even Project Blue Book, they stated that this little green man, apparently, he's not, I don't think he's actually green, was putting his hands in the air as if potentially saying that we mean no harm, that we surrender. Of course, we simply cannot assume that these entities have the same mindsets as humans do. When humans might raise their hands, that means surrender, but for them, it could mean something completely different. We simply can't assume that. And in this case, these two men did not assume that either. Instead, they shot at this little man, and the alien flipped back and scrambled back into the forest in the middle of the night. A little bit later, within a few hour period, they had several other encounters with multiple beings. And in one respect, where it states here that the claw-like hand reaches down and touches someone's hair from the ceiling, and they shot at it and it flipped again and went back into the forest. So it was a tedious night for all of them because the whole family was just in immense fear and terror because one, they don't know what these things are. Two, they feel like they're being attacked, and three, they have nowhere to go. They're stuck in their home. So at about 11 o'clock, 11 p.m. at night, the families run to their car and they drive off. And they're like, we don't want to deal with this. This is a crazy incident. And they drove as fast as they could to the local police sheriff. And here is kind of where it gets interesting. The policemen are like, okay, we'll check it out. We don't know what it is, but we will attempt to pacify you and your emotions and nothing to worry about. So when investigators went, there was no evidence of saucer landings. There were no evidence of footprints or blood. Even one Billy Ray and a few other men in the family swore that they had shot these beings. Like they knew that they were shot, but it seems as if they were almost like invincible. It didn't make sense to them, but there should have, at least in their mind, have been blood. Later on, this family, they talked to radio stations, they talked to newspapers, including the New York Times. And then you had hundreds of curious seekers going onto the farm and practically trespassing. And this family was like, we don't want trespassers, but no matter how many signs they put out, no matter how much they tried to threaten these curious kids or even adults, it simply didn't work. So what they ended up doing was they started charging people to enter their farm. They charged 50 cents for entering the grounds, $1 for information, and $10 for taking photos. Now, that's some really good cash in the 1950s. Like, that's some pretty good money if you're really going to go ahead and charge. Later on, the story kind of died down. People stopped visiting, but it states from the people that had this encounter, one of them being the main woman of the household, stated, "We didn't really want people to get involved in the story. We did not want to be in the limelight, but the best way to get rid of these people was to charge them." And investigators asked, "Were you guys happen to be drinking the day of the incident? Do you think you were just imagining what you were seeing?" And the woman of the house stated, "Alcohol is not allowed in my home." And I was talking to Christy Newton a while back when she was on my show, and she brought up a really good point. When you see a UFO sighting and you happen to be drinking that same day, it is good to preface that in your story. This way, people can make up their own minds. But any kind of substance like that that can alter the mind should be mentioned when you see anything slightly bizarre. And that is a good summary of the story that happened exactly on the 37th parallel.
Now, I can't wait for the next encounter, but there's a couple of things about this case that always stood out for me. First off, this is Kentucky. And the good people of Kentucky, most people around the world, but Kentucky, the South, you don't BS, and you are proud of your reputation in the town, in the city, on the street, with your employers, with your friends, of not being dishonest. That's paramount. Okay. And I'm being very straight. And in 1950, this was in 55. I think you said 57. This was in 55.
Yeah,
but 55, 57, 1977, 2021, it doesn't matter. It's part of what Kentucky is about, and Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi and Missouri and Indiana. I didn't mention Minnesota because that's a whole nother consideration, or Utah. But I love Minnesota. This is the deal. For them to go public outside of their home with something like this, somebody is telling the truth. And one of the statements that needs to be stated here, a statement needs to be stated here, is from the local sheriff. And his name was Russell Greenwell, police chief. And he says, and I quote, he said at the time, "These aren't the kind of people who normally run to the police for help. Okay, you take care of it's right. It's your house. You take care of it. That is what I'm talking about here." He said, Police Chief Russell Greenwell later told investigators what they do is reach for their guns. That's what you do. You settle it right then. Don't get the police involved. Right? That's the deal here. I saw a comment a while ago in the chat. They shouldn't have shot for. This whole story just plays out like it should have played out. It doesn't sound strange to me. It doesn't sound fictitious. It doesn't sound made up. It sounds honest, and I think that it just went down the way that it went down. They saw what they saw. They encountered what they encountered. And another point that you made, when they say, we shot at, we know. That's what they do. And if they feel that they shot and injured or should have brought something, that's what, Billy Ray and his family, they're professionals at that. That's what they do. They hunt. So, and of course you have loaded guns in the house. And for mom to say there's no alcohol here, well, I kind of buy that. Maybe that's her rule. I get that too as well. But that's okay. It doesn't matter if there was or if there wasn't. But the next point that you made earlier, and with all of this for 1955, and I'm not even sure if they had a TV. Most of America didn't have a TV in 1955. You had to be rich to have a TV in 1955. Is this little green men and the drawings and the description of what they saw, the full clarity of this was something that was established all the way through to this very day. Those words, that encounter, and it all happened on the 37th parallel. It's a fascinating case, and I'm going with the police chief, Russell Greenwell, on this one. They are who they are. They do what they do. They don't freak out. They don't come and get me involved. They take care of their business on their own. That's who these people are, and that's all I have to say. And that's what he said to the investigators.
And with all of that, we'll be right back after this break.
Hi, I'm Micah Hanks, and let me tell you something. I support Cristina Gomez as a Patreon subscriber, and here's why you should too. She brings all of her unique insights to a whole new generation, and all while she's also going through college. Listen, support Cristina. Become a Patreon subscriber today. You won't regret it.
Hey there, it's Cristina. Did you know you can get access to an exclusive extra segment of additional questions and answers with all of my guests, as well as behind-the-scene videos and photos? Ever wonder how I turn my small college dorm apartment into a studio where I can shoot new videos or set up lighting and backdrops for my show, or what camera I use? Yep, that video is there too, where I explain as I go along and also give the story of how I learned to do special video effects and editing. You can get access to all of that and much more by joining my Patreon supporters club. You'll be helping by supporting this channel, my research, and production costs, as well as investing in new shows coming soon. Starting from as little as $5 a month, there are several tiers you can choose from that suit your budget, and each tier carries extra perks and benefits. Join my Patreon club and become a supporter today.
Something interesting about this case as well, before we go into the next one, was there was a plausible explanation to what this whole family was seeing. And one skeptic stated, "You just saw an owl. They have glowing eyes, they're kind of short, they're really fast, and so you didn't see a little green man, but instead you just saw a pretty big owl." Now, I'm not sure how this sat with the family. I don't know how it sits with most people, but I can understand maybe the glowing eyes are really similar with what Billy Ray saw and what these owls are like. But as when it comes to the arms, and I mean, Billy Ray even drew ginormous ears, it would be difficult to state that maybe a 1-2 feet, a 1 foot owl could be the same as a 3.5 foot being.
I just figured out how to comment in the chat. It's on now. It's on now. Yeah, just say something. Say something. Bring it. Okay. Next case. And I'm looking at the clock. We've only discussed one case besides Gobekli Tepe.
Yes, and we haven't, but that one we got a few more to cover. We got some good time. First, I want to say thank you so much to Deborah. You are so sweet, and you like the theme music. Thank you. I will put the links in the information window later, Deborah, for you if you want to check it out. So hopefully you like it. Yeah, I love creating this stuff. It's so much fun.
Jimmy, pay attention. Yeah. Now, see, I've got to focus. I've got to focus right here. I'm all yours. Okay, next case.
Next case. Well, this one is rather short, and it's talking about cattle mutilations. This one was specifically from the book that Ben wrote, and it happened in Rush, Colorado, August 12th, 2010. Actually,
what page in the book?
It's chapter 2.
Chapter 2. I'm in chapter 2 right here.
Right.
Are you talking about Rush, Colorado, August 12th, 2010?
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
And it's actually on the 38th parallel. So not exactly on the 37th, but he and Chuck were actually on, they had their boots on the ground to go ahead and look at this woman who had called in 2 horses being mutilated. It wasn't cattle, but it was horses. And the one horse that was alive was incredibly traumatized from what had happened that same day. What Chuck noticed and what he consistently notices in a lot of these mutilations that he encounters, he's been doing this for about 3 decades, I believe. He stated in the New York Times in September of 2017, and he said that when it comes to cattle mutilations, he told The Sun Online, back in 2006, I was looking at my cattle mutilation investigations. There were huge similarities between them all. Most of them were laying on their right side, they're laying east to west, and then I noticed that lots of them were on the 37th degree latitude. And we'd even heard stories from Linda Moulton Howe, who's one of the most famous investigators when it comes to cattle mutilations. And from my understanding, she states things that are rather similar, and also certain pieces of the cattle have been taken, such as the tongue, certain organs on the inside, like the stomach or like any of the large intestines, eyeballs. And Chuck had also noticed this. From your understanding, and for have been doing this for years, in your opinion, what do you think the reason is for cattle to be losing eyeballs, tongues, and organs from inside of the body?
All great questions. And historically, this is why you asked me why I think why. This is why I think that there's something else going on that isn't. I don't think it's us doing it, but there's another part of this that some of these may be us, and I'll get to that in a second. But in nature, we have seen, as long as humans have been around, we know what animals can do out in the wild. Survival of the fittest. They need to go eat dinner. They're going to go and get it done, and we know what that looks like, right? Bones picked clean, and animals don't waste, right? Okay, but one of the things that we pretty much know about is animals also don't have laser cutting weapons and tools and electricity. And when you look at some of the bone cutting with teeth along the jawline, and how this is done, through to the skin, and you look, that is not nature. That is not a wolf, a lion, a bobcat, whatever you want to, a raccoon. I don't care. That's not somebody feasting on a horse or a cow out in the middle of nowhere. That's not what's going on here. Animals go and they pick those things clean. That's what they do. They don't waste, and they do it quickly while the meat is still fresh. That stuff is done. And you put a cow out, it's difficult for animals to survive the night. You don't want to come and get eaten because somebody is out there doing the eating. And then after you manage to survive the night, because it's tough to get a meal, now you've got to wake up and survive the day. You've got to go out and somehow not get eaten again. That's what goes on. Now, if you're going to have a cow out in the middle of nature like that, it is going to get eaten by everything. That's wide open. That's a Thanksgiving dinner. It's just lying out there, and it doesn't, right? And you don't see, there's nothing there. That's why I kind of take, with most of these cases, I take nature out of it. But there's 2 other points for me that says that it's not human doing this. There's no blood. In most cases, there's no blood right? Not puddles of blood. That's not there. But I'm talking about drops or traces or things. If you and I, Christina, are dropping off a cow in the middle of the desert, and you and I are carrying it through, there's going to be stuff, right? There's going to be a trail. There's going to be, and none of that was there. So this lack of blood internally and externally is also fascinating to me. It takes the human element out of it. So I believe that just like if you and I are anthropologists or biologists and we're working for our university, right? And they send us on a nice summer trip down to the Galapagos Islands, or they send us to the rainforest in Brazil, and they're telling us to go find a new species of something, a new insect, a new rodent, a new something. Bag and tag it, bring it back, and let's check it out, right? And so that's our gig. So you and I, as students, are traipsing through the jungle and the rainforest, and we find this furry creature. Never seen it before. We look at, oh, check it out. Christina, we've got the new Gomezopithecus. Right? We're going to name this thing. And we take it and we bring it back to our university and we study it and we photograph it and maybe cut it apart, little autopsy, little internal, Now, are you and I having second thoughts about this? Are we having guilt about taking these animals, these creatures, away from their families? Are we thinking about that? No. We're not.
We have the scientific mindset. We just want to understand what's going on versus having that sense of morality, I guess.
Right. And what's okay? Is it okay not to do that with a primate, some new species of monkey? Is that wrong? Is that morally wrong to take the monkey out of the tree and bring it back? And some would say, but it's okay to grab a spider or a snake or an insect. That's okay, right? I'm talking about with the public, right? The way that they think about things.
Yeah.
It's okay to cut apart a frog in biology class, right? That's okay. But it's not okay for E.T. to pick up a cow, right? That somehow we're shocked by that when we have been doing it as humans forever.
Since the beginning.
So that's the part when it comes to there must be countless missing creatures from forests and deserts around the world that have been abducted by ET that we don't even know about. We just happen to know about the cattle and horse mutilations. I'll say this, in Ben Mesrich's book, Chuck Zukowski said, he goes, this has been done. This is when they were on the ranch, right, in Rush. And he turns to Ben. He's like, this has been done 10,000 times. Ben is thinking this is some unique, it's horrific. It's grotesque. We've got multiple, mutilated cows and horses here. And he was freaking out. And Chuck's like, dude, 10,000 cases. It's gone on 10. This isn't the only one, and that's what we kind of need to wrap our head around. This one happened to happen right on the 37th parallel.
It's a bizarre thing. And while we're on the topic of cattle mutilations, for those that aren't familiar with them, I just want to briefly cover, because I saw it in the comments, that someone asked, well, if you have a dead cow, right, will it get eaten by vultures? What about bugs? Who's going to take care of it? And the answer usually is it's avoided. No vultures, most bugs, almost like maybe flies here and there. But other than that, it just kind of shrivels up by the sun and natural elements. But animals don't really touch cattle mutilations. They do not touch them. And there are some speculations of it. Maybe possibly it could be from radiation. It
Mhm.
could be from some kind of chemical that maybe was placed on them for some odd
Yep.
reason. These are more speculations. I have seen some people do look at the radiation levels, and in most cattle mutilations, but not all of them, there is some kind of residue of radiation on these animals that scavengers just do not want to touch.
Yes, and so and we'll go on to the next case.
And
But hang on, young lady, just hang on. There has been multiple reports of helicopters, black helicopters, big transport helicopters coming in, picking off and dropping off cattle, sometimes from great heights, just dropping them off, right? And now, what do we do with that part? Okay, two things. First, could this be different corporations and laboratories out there where there has been testing going on, atomic weapons, picking up these cattle, taking them back, checking out the effects of these weapons tests? There's that. And I buy into that. And there could be autopsies going on. Maybe they're checking out the internal organs. Maybe they're just Geiger countering them and dropping them back off. I don't know. But those reports have been there, and I am sure that would happen. Not only cattle, but whatever else they could pick up. Rabbits, are they eating vegetation that's been radiated, and all kinds of things, right? Okay, there's that. But could the government and these corporations do it in a fashion that would replicate and duplicate actual cattle mutilations by ET? And they could go and do the testing on these cattle for their own reasons and make it look like an actual ET cattle mutilation. And they could hide the government testing and experiments that they're doing in a clandestine form. And I think that's a very real possibility. So we have a combination of them both. You have the ET side and why they are doing it. You have the United States government side and why they would be doing it and disguising it and hiding it like an actual ET cattle mutilation. And I'm pretty sure I'm pretty close to the truth here.
I would hope so. And I think a really good example of a modern day cattle mutilation that has been caught on television, not of it already on the ground, was in the show of Skinwalker Ranch. There they have stated on multiple episodes where the body was left untouched for months and then decay just came in very, very slowly. And there have been several instances of those different types of cows being mutilated. However, all of them kind of passed on in the exact same fashion. Bloodless, specific organs taken, and no predation evidence before or after. There were no bite marks and there were no flash tears at all. And that makes me question, could Skinwalker Ranch be on the 37th parallel or be nearby it? I don't know. I haven't looked, but it's just merely a thought based off of all the crazy things that have happened there. And while we're on the conversation about cattle mutilations, it's like, maybe.
Well, let me tell you, because I have this new program on my Interbox, and it's and what you can do. Okay, so let's see. What is this Skinwalker Ranch place? I've never heard of this, but let's see. I have this new program, and it gives you the planet, the Earth, and then you're able to look it up, and so it's telling me, dang, it's close.
Ooh.
Oh, are you stealing my screen? Did you do it again? Did it move? Did it do the motion graphics?
Yes. No, it didn't.
Oh, okay. Because that was pretty cool. I had it all set up for that. Okay. Oh, that's my mouse moving. Let me get my mouse off the screen. So, but what do we see here? Okay, now see if I zoom out. Look, Christina,
Yes.
this is like downtown Charlie Brown right here. Okay, so if we zoom way out, there's the 37th parallel right there. This is on the 40th parallel.
Ooh.
Skinwalker Ranch right there. There it is in the middle of the screen. Let me bring it up, bring it up, bring it up, bring it up. There it is, the 40th parallel. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
I like that. Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. See, because when you zoom it out this far, and you look, and you see in relation to the United States and what is going on here, there's the 30th, right? There's the 35th and 40th. See, that's the 47th, right?
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay, so there it is right there. Let's zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. And then this is what's great about that everybody can see it here. You can see the grid lines, and as close as you want to get as you zoom in, and then you've got your spot here. You can click on that, and it's going to tell you exactly where you are. So it's north 40 degrees, 15 minutes, 31 seconds. And there's Skinwalker right there. Now, also, that's the main building for Skinwalker, but how big is Skinwalker Ranch? And does it start to, get closer to the actual 37th? But there you go. Yeah, I just absolutely love Google Earth. It's great.
It's Google Earth is pretty fantastic. It helps me get from place to place because reading a map these days, I don't know how to read a map.
Yeah,
like to go from like store to store, be like, well, here are all the main roads, and then take a right here, and then like nowhere, dude. No, I need a GPS. I need Google Maps to get me to the grocery store.
Pull up my screen again now that we know that we can do this. Okay, this is my screen. Okay, so here's Area 51 right here. You can see. Okay, this is the 30th parallel. And if you zoom in here, let's just call that's the 35th, the 37th, which is here. There's Arizona, there's Nevada, and there it is. It'll be, somewhere in here. But there's the 35th. So let's swing this baby around. Let's just swing this around, and we'll follow. This is the 35th. Let's just follow this around, follow this around, follow this around. And there's the 35th. There's the border right here, right? There's the 39th. Now I'll come up here and let's go Beckley Tepe. As you can see, I've already got it selected here. So let's do that and watch this. Watch what happens. Let's zoom in. There it is, 37th parallel.
And Jimmy, can you, for those that don't know the infamous story about Göbekli Tepe, can you just talk about it?
Just slowly with me. Göbekli. Say it. Göbekli.
Göbekli
Tepe.
Tepe. Göbekli Tepe. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, it's awesome that it's related to the 37th parallel, which is today's show. Can you just, what's it all about? Tell me.
This is the oldest construction of anything by humans discovered yet on planet Earth. That's it. It's 12,000 years old. It's right here. Now, okay, this is the other part. You know what's really bizarre? And you can see it here. It's on the 38th latitude and 37th longitude. It's on the 37th and the 38th parallels on the corner. It's like, what? And here it is. Here's the site. It's a megalithic site. It's the oldest. Some are calling it a temple. Some are calling it the first religious temple. It's actually the first of anything. And it was built 7,000 years before the Giza Pyramid and the Giza Plateau, allegedly. So here it sits. It's right on the border of Syria and Turkey. If I back this up and back this up, this is Syria here. This is Turkey here. Now, but this is crazy. The crazy part for me, if you just back this out, right down the street, you see the 37th parallel right there, right?
Mhm.
So you back this up, and right down the road, walking distance, here's the Giza Plateau right here. It's
Distance.
just like right there. Just a stroll through the desert.
Just
And
casual.
it's a fascinating thing. So, again, here's the 37th parallel, everybody. And here's Göbekli Tepe right here. There's the 37th. And so when you back out of this, just studying the closest line that's represented here on Google Earth, which is the 35th parallel, and you can just go through on Google Earth and just zoom up, name a site, and then see if it falls on. Here's this 37th right here, and see if it does. And I've done it many, many, many times, and just follow the 37th across. And there's Great Britain.
Yeah, you're gonna hit some weird places, and then you're gonna have encounters like which I have talking about, for example, Roswell, Phoenix, things of this nature that are gonna be somewhat close to it, not necessarily on the line, which I fell for it. I thought the 37th parallel was the UFO highway, but you got to be a little lenient with it. You can't be strict on the 37th. You got to kind of like be flexible. You know, people like other people that are flexible, not so rigid. In the same case, probably the 37th parallel wants you to be more laxed. And for myself, I was very rigid. I was like, no, this cannot be true. So, but what I'm getting at is it's kind of hard to explain from the research that we have done, from the research that even Ben Mazurich has done and Chuck as well. It's makes you question. There are so many things on Earth already that we can't explain. What are the things that are happening outside of our Earth? And I find that in a sense very beautiful. It keeps you always wondering what's next. And as we can tell, Jimmy is going through the book right now.
I'm going through the book because there was a couple of I haven't gone back and reread the book, but I was looking for there was a chapter in there that I found extremely fascinating. That again, I didn't realize. And then once you pull up Google Earth and you start looking at the 35, 36, 37, 38th parallel, and what's happening there historically, you go, well, it's right there, right? This is an imagination. And that was Foo Fighters in World War II. And I remember that Ben had a whole chapter about that and how the Foo Fighters were reported back then on the 37th parallel.
It was on the 50th parallel.
Oh, see, that's my memory. I didn't go back and read.
No, because I mean, look, you would think it would be, but when I was going through those coordinates, it had stated, and I even took it off my notes because I was so disappointed. But it was talking about like a German territory, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I Google it, and it's actually on the 50th parallel, and I'm thinking, that I can't tell the story now.
And thank you, Cristina, for tossing me around like that, throwing me under the bus. It was one of my fondest memories. It was glowing, and I used to just think about this every single day. The Foo Fighters from the 37th parallel. And
I was excited too.
It wasn't real. It turns out it wasn't real.
No. I mean, it probably happened. These people aren't lying. It just didn't happen on the 37th parallel. Now, there's another story that, well, before we even get to the story, something that I want to mention is Las Vegas is also on the 37th parallel.
Mm-hmm.
And John says, hi, John. He says, also, it's been said that even older sites very close to Göbekli Tepe have been found, and the excavations will be ongoing for a very long time.
Absolutely. And they have found 11 more sites. So now they're calling it 12 Tepe, not Göbekli Tepe, because they found 11 additional sites. And Don D is just coming in here too as well. Okay, so because we're talking about the 37th parallel, it's fair, it's safe. We're in a safe zone here that we can actually talk about Göbekli Tepe because the connection is glaring. The other connection of building a den of sin, like the city of Las Vegas and the 37th parallel, not a coincidence either. But anyway, it is a pure den of sin, knee deep in fluids that we can't even describe on this family show. It's incredible. Okay, so anyway.
That's not, but it's that one I found kind of bizarre. I was like, whoa, no way. Because there are a sufficient amount of sightings in Las Vegas. But one thing we need to keep in mind, especially in modern day sightings, or even in the past, it doesn't matter. You also need to look at the population. Of course, there's going to be a lot more sightings in Las Vegas because the population is so dense. You have more people to go ahead and state, I saw this thing, I saw that, versus maybe in a small town of, let's say, I don't know, some small town somewhere that has like a population maybe 50,000 people. You're not going to have that same flux of sightings simply because there are less people. So with Las Vegas, I feel it's kind of like a little wishy-washy, at least for me, from my understanding from the data that I've collected, just because it already is a very densely populated town. And especially in modern days, right? People can easily mistake UFOs that could either be airplanes or even Starlight satellites by Elon Musk. So for those that are presently want to do UFO sightings, that want to just go enjoy yourself out there and you happen to see something, I believe it's incredibly important to have applications or programs on your phone or on your laptop that can track satellites, that can track airplanes, and even your basic knowledge of astronomy. Well, like what's happening in space right now that we're possibly seeing. Could the UFO that we're seeing be Venus, like we've heard in countless Project Blue Book examples? So in today's world, I feel like it's a little bit harder to attempt to distinguish what we're seeing. And Las Vegas is having a lot more sightings these past few years, and it could be for that, along with the intense population density there.
Right. And I use 3 or 4 different software programs. And when you jump out there and, you're looking into the night sky, I think it is very, very important. I can't tell you how many times I have seen the ISS fly over. And when the ISS flies over in the right conditions, you can actually see the solar panels. You can, it's high up there, but you can tell it's not just a light. You can see that there's structure to it. And when you see it fly over in really good, on a good, clear, dark night, it's a mind-blowing experience. And you think that it's ET. It just doesn't look right. It doesn't look like a moving star or just a single bright light. But you pull up a program like I have, and that tells you when literally the ISS will be flying over your location in 15 minutes, right? And so and any satellites that are up above you at that point, you can select that and it will tell you, and you can take your phone and hold it up to that portion of the sky, and it's going to tell you what satellites are right there at that time. Exact. I mean, it's exact. Also, the same thing applies to astronomy, and some of these programs have both inside of the program, so you can have both astronomical charts in the sky combined with satellites that are moving, so you're not thinking that some geostationary satellite that's above you is actually a star system or whatever. So I think that stuff is very, very crucial, because when you do see something that you can identify and that's caught your attention, and you're able to just do that, and you're watching the object, and you can eliminate everything that you need to eliminate at that moment, and then you can pull the phone down and then continue your observation. I think it's critical, and it's so great that we have these kind of tools at our disposal.
It
I
makes
have
things easier for
I
sure.
have them so fast on my phone, right? Where and they load quickly, they load immediately, and I'm able to go bam and see it right away. It's important. I use a bunch and you can just go search the app store. I use Night Sky for astronomy. Off the top of my head, I have 2 satellite programs. I can't remember what the names are, but they're available.
They are, and they're easy access. And I think for those that are, again, brand new or that don't really know, you don't put into consideration that you kind of need these things in order to get more valuable results. We only have about 15 minutes left, and there's one more story I want to cover that I found interesting that once again is on the 37th parallel, and that is the Joplin Spook lights. Have you heard that story?
Okay, what page is it? Yes.
This one is not in the book.
Oh, it's not in the book. Okay. Continue.
It's not in the book. However, Chuck has mentioned it. He mentioned it in his New York Times interview. So it is he does know about it. And this one I really liked it, not just for the story, but for the potential legend that's attached to it. And this is where I really want to get into. But I'll read the summary first. And it says, according to legend, the spook light was first seen by Indians along the infamous Trail of Tears in 1836. However, the first official report occurred in 1881 in the publication called the Ozark Spook Light. And how it is described, it is stated to be a ball of fire, described as varying from size of a baseball to a basketball, and it says that it dances and spins down the center of the road at high speeds, rising above the treetops, and then it retreats and disappears. Others have said it sways from side to side like a lantern, being carried by some invisible force. In any event, the orange fire like ball has reportedly been appearing nightly for well over 100 years. According to locals, the best time to view the spook lights is between the hours of 10 p.m. and midnight and tends to shy away from large crowds and loud sounds. Now, there have been countless explanations by skeptics saying, well, it can easily be headlights. It can be any kind of technology that we have today. It could be drones. However, it wouldn't explain the sightings that happened in 1836, 1881, where those things really were not a thing in your day-to-day places. Okay, at least it wasn't technology that was available to the public. But here's what I want to get at. At the very beginning of the show, I had stated the 37th parallel is not only UFO sightings, but it's also ghost sightings as well, high amounts. Well, this is kind of where the story leads into it. You have skeptics that say, yes, it was probably just your car headlights. But some people state that it could potentially be a ghost. And one of the most famous ones, and one of the oldest, is of a Quapaw Indian maiden who fell in love with a young, brave man. However, her father would not allow her to marry the man as he did not have a large enough dowry. The pair eloped, but were soon pursued by a party of warriors. According to legend, when the couple was close to being captured, they joined hands above the spring river and leaped to their deaths. It was shortly after this event that the lights began to appear, and that attributed to the spirits of the young lovers. And when it comes to folklore, yes, it can be very difficult to place evidence or data, right? In this case, for 100 years, people have been claiming that they've seen these things, and then a story could have emerged from it stating that this Indian couple came together and they died together. But regardless of that, I think it's incredibly fascinating. It's a beautiful but sad story, something that probably Shakespeare would write. And it leads to the fact that sometimes you simply cannot separate the stories of UFOs and the stories of the paranormal. In many respects, they kind of work hand in hand for those that don't know how to explain what's going on.
Absolutely. And all of those are really great points. And I guess this will be my last show with you. You don't need me anymore. You're just too good.
Well, I learned from the best.
Is this? Nah, I'm going to hang out. Is this and I love that. I love that story and I love that encounter. And this has been going on for a long time, right there in the 37th parallel. And the reports of this type of activity, call it orbs, call it balls of light, call it spirits, Native Americans and cultures that have been here for a long time have had reports about these things for a long time, and they always tend to be an energetic area for them, and geographically for their culture, for their tribes. But here's the deal: the Brown Mountain Lights, which also go back a long time, hundreds of years. And I think that today the history is telling us that this is a Native American, this is an indigenous experience, the Brown Mountain Lights, because they've been reported about in this area for a very, very, very long time. We, modern society, witnessing this today, your very good friend, I haven't met him yet, but I would like to hang out with him. He seems really cool, Micah Hanks. And Micah Hanks has been out there reporting on this for a very long time. It's in his neighborhood. And my point being with this, it's on the 37th parallel, right? and the Brown Mountain Lights, and just like this case that you were just talking about here, I think that they're probably the same thing, right, that is being seen. But I've done multiple shows with Micah and others about the Brown Mountain Lights. It's been a case that's fascinated him for a number of years. And that section of the country, Tennessee, North Carolina, all the way to the East Coast, that area of the 37th parallel, high activity. Everything is seen in this area. But the Brown Mountain Lights, one of the most documented, witnessed, reported on, photographed, videotaped, studied phenomena in this country, is on the 37th parallel. And I'm fascinated with it. I don't know what it is. It could these be spirits? I have no clue. What's the interest with the 37th parallel? I don't know. It's a mountain range. Is it granite? Is there quartz? Is there something else magnetic going in the ground? Is it a natural anomaly that's being brought out? Is there something electromagnetic that is generating this? Is it ball lightning? All of these theories have been laid out. The one thing that is the fact is that the Brown Mountain Lights are real. It's been going on for reported on for hundreds and hundreds of years. Could be going on for tens of thousands of years. Reported on, part of history, and it's on the 37th parallel, Christina. It's absolutely fascinating.
I don't even know what to say to that, because you're right. It's so fascinating, and there are so many possible explanations of what it could be, why it's happening, but no one has the answer. Matthew, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. And we are kind of coming to a close for the show. And Deborah, also thank you. It says, great topic today, Christina and James.
What did I miss?
I didn't know you changed your name to James.
Oh, James. Oh, that's interesting, man. I don't hear that often. I do not hear that too often. So my stepmom, my adopted mom, Sharon, sent me a Christmas card. I got it today. And I always know it's from her. It says Jim. It's just like, oh man. It's just so funny. Yeah, Jim and James. There you go. Christina, so what are we going to do next week?
Oh, I haven't decided yet. Just give me a few days. Exofa, thank you. It says, great show, very interesting. I've seen my share of orbs formations and lights here. I suspect they're exotic plasma constructs of sorts, alien drones. That's interesting.
Now there was a question earlier, and I can't remember who posted it. I haven't been looking at the chat room here. I've been ignoring it. Somebody asked me if Göbekli Tepe, if I thought it was deliberately buried. It was deliberately buried. I don't have to, think that or form an opinion on it. It was 100% absolutely deliberately buried. It was deliberately buried multiple times over thousands of years. What was the intention of this? I don't know. But if I was a betting man and went to the 37th parallel of Las Vegas and had to lay some money down, I think that they were preserving the site for us. That's what I think. I think it was deliberately buried. They encapsulated everything. They saved it. They preserved it. And maybe they preserved it for a reason. Maybe it's a museum. Maybe it's, it's some kind of library. It's something that they wanted us to figure out in the future. They wanted to freeze frame that timeline of their life for us so we could see it in the future. Maybe some cataclysmic event was about to happen and they knew about that and they had to get out of town, right? And so they buried it and they were going to come back and unbury it later. I don't know. But it was definitely 100% deliberately buried. And I'm glad that it was, because today we have it exactly as it existed. With they filled it with their own garbage, right? Their own debris. The other part in this deliberately burying part, whoever asked the question, thank you. It's a great question. No weapons. No weapons. Isn't that fascinating?
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, no weapons. Nothing. No arrowheads, no arrows, no swords, no nothing defensive. So that community that built Göbekli Tepe, and this happened over thousands of years. It wasn't built in a week. They weren't at war with anybody. They weren't defending the site. There was nobody trying to take the site from them or anything. There wasn't any evidence of any battles or anything. And I find that comforting. You want to know, there are certain cultures, certainly the ones that are responsible for Göbekli Tepe. There are certain periods in time. This happened in China. Once in a while. This happened in Egypt once in a while, not totally the entire time, but there was, 1,000 years of Egyptian history. Remember, the United States is a couple of 100 years old. We're a blip on the radar, right? We're a very new country. 250 years old. What Columbus allegedly, 1492, 1500, the Pilgrims got here and in the 1600s, so this is all new here. But how many wars have we fought as a world in the last 200 years, right? It's been one long something going on all the time. Egypt had 1,200 years, Christina, of nothing. So what is a culture able to do over a 1,200-year period where they're not fighting your neighbors, you're not being invaded, you're not building armies, you're not wasting taxes and resources on all of that? What do? You learn, you create, you understand the mind, you know how to love, you understand what family is and art and creativity. Maybe write a song, right? And that's what was going on at Göbekli Tepe. There wasn't anything negative happening there. It was a very positive environment. And Egypt went through that, and other cultures. Every time that they go, a couple of 100 years without a war, they just blossom and they grow. And maybe we can learn something from those ancient cultures, and we can blossom and grow in our own future too as well. With that, Happy holidays. I can't wait to see what you've got for us next week. And then, man, and then it's Christmas.
Christmas? Well, I have a
Oh,
question.
yeah.
Do you have time for one more story?
Oh, man.
The
Yeah,
the
let's
the
go.
Aztec, Nevada incident in 1946. 48.
Oh, you're bringing out the big guns.
That one's an interesting one because it's
It
rather
is.
controversial. That
Mhm,
also happened
mhm.
on the 37th parallel. But
Yes.
first, Skyhawk, thank you. It says, great subject tonight. Good info. Well done, tag team.
Ah,
Pew,
good.
pew.
I like that. Okay, what page is it on?
It's also, I didn't see it in the book.
Oh, man, that's it, Christina. You're so fired. I'm busy next week. I've got stuff to do. No, I was just reading about the Aztec, Nevada case.
And this one, like I didn't know a lot about it. I knew bits and pieces here and there. So I think it'll be interesting to talk about it for those that don't know the story at all and why it's so controversial because there are quite a few bits and pieces. Of course, we're not going to go into any intense detail on the story, but I will start off with the summary. And it says here, the Aztec, Nevada incident happened in 1948 when a flying saucer allegedly crashed, according to Frank Scully. Now, does the Scully last name sound familiar to you? Well, that's because his name later influenced the TV show X-Files. Anyways, in March of 1948, an unidentified aerial phenomena craft containing 16 humanoid bodies was recovered by the military in New Mexico after making a controlled landing in Hart Canyon, 12 miles northeast of the city of Aztec. The craft was said to be about 99 feet in diameter, the largest UFO to date. And then it goes into a little bit more detail stating that these entities that came out of this craft were wearing kind of suits that looked almost indestructible. And it makes you question, well, how did when they crash, did they not get wounded? That makes me question, how did the people know that are telling the story know that their suits were indestructible? That's where my mind goes. Anyways, that's kind of like a very light summary of the story. You have a crash that happened in New Mexico with 16 humanoid entities coming out of that craft. Now, here is why it gets rather controversial. And during the late 1940s, early 1950s, Silas Newton, did I say it right? Silas Newton and Leo Gabauder traveled through Aztec and stating that they were traveling salesmen. And in order to attempt to sell devices stating that it helped with the oil businesses, they called them doodle bugs. And they claimed that these devices could find oil, gold, and gas. And the reason to why they could find all of these magical things was because it was based off of alien technology recovered from the supposed crash of the flying saucer from the people of Venus. And there are researchers later on that talk about this case and they say, well, yeah, Venus technology is pretty fancy. It's pretty good stuff. You should definitely buy my doodle bug because when else are you ever going to get Venus technology? And it seems like these two men were trying to sell their tech based off of a story that they already knew about of a crash happening pretty close by. Later on, they did end up getting caught that what they were selling was completely fake and they were put into prison for fraud just a few years after that. It says here in 1965. So they were really running a company for quite a few years selling these fake things. Later on, in the early 1970s, you have some ufologists bringing the story back up and they said, I don't know, I feel like the crash really did happen. Maybe these entities really did come out, but these two men, these two travel salesmen kind of tainted the entire story and made the whole story into the hoax, when maybe just their attempt to sell alien technology was the hoax. And I feel like that's kind of what happened. Later on, we have another ufologist saying, no, I think this really did happen. And that's the overall story of the incident that happened in Aztec.
Yes, and when you look at where Aztec is, and by the way, I don't think it's any coincidence that we've had these amazing sightings throughout the state of New Mexico. Of course, starting with the one that everybody's familiar with, which is Roswell. Aztec is way north, and it's above Albuquerque. Roswell being a couple of 100 miles south. That being said, if you go back and look at the books that were originally coming out from 1980 through 1995, there's still books today, and a couple of more have come out about Aztec. Is these crashes were happening all over the state. And although Roswell is at the 34th parallel, the 33rd, the 34th, still in the general vicinity. You back up from Earth and you look at the 35th parallel and see what's it's all very, very close. But Aztec is on the 37th. And that is, if you are hoaxing a case, and everything else, those guys back then didn't know about the 37th parallel. They don't know anything about that, and they're hoaxing a case right there on the 37th. There is historically the Aztec case has got a lot of eyewitnesses and a lot of people from different parts of the country, from academia, from private corporations, to the UFO community too as well, and the military, that are all related and woven into the Aztec case, which says to me, I don't know if there were 16 alien bodies. I don't know. I don't know if there was 100-foot circular craft. I don't know. I don't know if it was buried in the side of the mountain. I don't know who discovered it. There's all of these different eyewitness accounts when it comes to Aztec. What I do know is it was on the 37th parallel. And it's just another I love push pins. I have right over there on the other side of the studio, I have a box of push pins. Yeah. I love push pins. I love getting out a map. I like, and it's one thing to do this on a computer. It's one thing to see it in a book. But I like push pins. I do. I like being Scully. I do. I like being Mulder. I like push pins, and I like strings. Yes.
That is all the time we have for today's show. And Jimmy, today is a fader night tonight. So people in the chat, you guys can call in on Jimmy's show and tell your stories about whatever you want to talk about.
Yep.
I like listening into those days every Thursday.
Yep. It's my favorite night of the week. Tomorrow I have to fly out of town. I've got to do some filming this weekend. And here's the great thing about Fader Night, and it's, again, there are no coincidences. But next week, we start our 9th year.
Wow.
Yeah, on a Fader Night. How crazy is that? How crazy? 9 years, man. 9. Ooh. All right, Cristina. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you tonight on the show. Thank you, everybody. Cristina, you're the absolute very, very best. And again, great chat. I didn't spend any time. I actually was able to type today, and I did nothing in the chat room. I didn't read anything. I didn't. Next week, I'm going to go to town in the chat. Cristina, I'll see you tonight on the show. Thank you for having me here today and allowing me to spend some time with your audience. They're the best. Thank you so much, Cristina. I'll see you guys later.
And Deborah says, Jimmy, I have a great one tonight. She's going to be calling in and telling you a cool story. Deborah Levine. It's going to be awesome. All right, Jimmy, I will catch you later. Bye. All righty, everyone. Thank you so much for listening in or watching wherever platform that you're listening in on. Thank you for everyone in the live chat. Thank you so much for all the super stickers, all the super chats. Thank you to all my amazing Patreons. And I'm being so honest. This would not be possible without you guys supporting my work. And for those that haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and share it with others that have the same interest as us. Here's the weird thing is if we don't talk about this with people, they're not going to know what's going on. It's the same thing as think about a brand new color right here, right now. Can you think about a new one? The answer is no. If it's not already there, right? If you haven't already seen it or experienced it or heard it at least once, it's going to be very difficult to imagine. So let's make disclosure happen and let's share videos like these. That is it for today. I will see all of you the same time next Thursday for Mysteries with a History. And remember, keep your eyes on the skies.